What's up guys, Jordan from Bennetts Customs. We're back on another episode. Getting into some fab work, finally. As you can see, we are in the new workshop. We still have a ton to set up. Nothing is bolted down, shit is everywhere. We are working on the Hemi Coupe. If you guys have been following along, you know we've done a full custom floor, custom channel. We've made custom front cowl bits, rear bottom quarter bits. We've done so much work to this already. What I will be creating is this piece right here. This nice little beautiful shaped aluminum piece. We're gonna do that all with simple tools, lots of blending, lots of cool finishing techniques, using some scrap steel that we had. You're never gonna guess what this is gonna be for, although in the next clip you're gonna see it. Let's get into the video. So now that we have the body channeled down that sort of 2.5 inches, and we got our nice lower cowl piece, you know, fabbed in and metal finished and looking really nice. There's a bit of an area up the front where the firewall sort of post comes down and meets the frame. Now, usually I've seen lots of guys make kind of like little elbow or 90-degree pieces that are flat bar that picks up a body mount and, you know, picks up a bit of the firewall. Some people just leave it and then they build the structure inside that bolts it down. What I want to do is, because we have a lot of really nice cast aluminum polished pieces throughout this motor, I want to make a piece that creates sort of a mountain here. Obviously it's not going to look like this at all, but this is sort of the structure that I want to try and create. So it would be a 90-degree break with some aluminum flat bar. I'm going to make it all out of aluminum so we can sort of mold it and shape it and texture it potentially, but no, I probably won't texture it. I'm going to polish this. I want it to be high finish polish, so once everything's painted, maybe different color firewall to the body than the frame, then we're going to have these really nice sort of accent pieces that, you know, really are a good focal point for here. That's usually sort of an area that's quite dull or not really ever used. All right, so what I'm starting with here is a bit of 10 by 100 aluminum flat bar, and this is going to be sort of what we're going to make the structure out of. What I'd like to do is kind of just give you a rough idea. That's basically our flat bar. This will be our firewall. This is our frame. And then what I'd like to do is double up this to make it obviously 20 mil, like that. And then in here, we're gonna have like a little sort of rib piece that will have a hole in there, but we're gonna smooth all this out. And what I wanna do is I'm gonna sort of dog bone it and have it kind of created so it sort of looks like that. And then it'll have the inside bit like that. And then this will sort of be contoured in that way, if that makes sense. And then we'll have sort of a mount there and a mount up the top. It's gonna be fun. A lot of metal sculpting kind of gonna happen. Probably use that little router that we've had, and then tons of little tricks on, you know, trying to smooth it all out with different hand tools. So 120. 120 by 120, 150. I am using a bit of polishing wax as our wax to lubricate our disc. I don't know where our cheap dollar store candles have gone, but tons of different things you can use, but you just want to keep this lubricated so that it doesn't gum up the aluminum. Obviously, being a very soft metal, it loves to stick to these, and then it's super tough and takes ages to cut. So the more you apply, the easier it is. Okay, so what I want to do, that's basically our initial rough outline, right? But I want to double it up. So I want to have doubled up kind of with maybe like a 5 mil sort of area around that I can weld, and then we can kind of sculpt it all. So I want this top bit to be round, and then it kind of comes down and rounds off. Prior to doing that though, because I was just thinking I could just cut them, I may actually just shape these first so that I could trace that out on a piece of paper, and then we can use that as a template so they are the exact same, the bases of them. So I'm thinking something, maybe just like a little bit of shape out of here, and then this would obviously be sort of rounded off and then more like that. And then we'd have our second piece sort of sitting in like that. And then here we would have a countersunk, you know, running some sort of nice hardware, probably a slot or something that, you know, looks the part.
Down to Memphis town, that's where the people smile on you all the while. Hospitality, they were good to me. I couldn't spend a dime and had the grandest time. I went out a dancing.
So as you can see, I'm obviously cutting it on a laminated glass, and all that does is just make it a lot easier to cut out. It saves the blades. Otherwise you cut on the fab table and you get like one cut out of the blade, and then you basically hoop.
They call the Memphis Blues, oh the blues. They've got a fiddler there that always slickens his hair, and folks he sure do pull some ball. And when the big bassoon...
Cool stuff with this straw board that I use for doing all my templates is don't be scared to go over to your linisher and like actually shape it a little bit. It works so well. You can really kind of smooth out and finesse your lines. I'll actually show you. If we go over here, it's a little bit sketchy, but yeah, I think this is probably an old 80 grit piece on here. You could probably go a little bit finer if you needed, but just in those areas that are a little bit kind of rough, I'll just turn it on. I'm not pressing hard. You got 10 lines to work towards. And now you have a really smooth radius all the way around. Imagine we could just create all these out of cardboard. How nice that would be. It's so easy. Glue it all together with a hot glue gun. Job done. So now that we have kind of our little object that we want to create, we can then go and stick it onto our aluminum. I'm just using the big Magnum PI Sharpie as our layout. Cheap and easy. If you really wanted to, you could do both sides so you know where you are on both sides. Sometimes when you cut something that's a little bit thick, it could be a bit on an angle. But now we have something that I can see. I might just throw this back on here for 2 seconds. And I'm going to set where our hole is going to be. That's actually going to be our mount right there. So I'll drill that out. So the next one will sit on top of it.
it's gonna kind of sit in like that. So then we have kind of an area to sculpt and an area to weld, so it should look really cool. So we're over at the big linisher. This thing makes quick work of, you know, obviously kind of shaping and you know, sanding and that. What I do is I usually put it on this plate, and then I'll be able to radius that edge really nicely from where we cut it on the bandsaw. What I did too is this actually continued right across to here, and I've actually trimmed it and just radiused this edge here. That way I can run it along here, and then when I want to do these inside curves, I can then jump over onto the side rather than having to remove the plate. Now, what I'm going to do is actually make a whole new one of these that is going to sit square. Obviously, it's level right now to make sure that we get a nice 90-degree edge to our material. But what I'd like to do as well is, you guys always see me use the other small one, and I'm always trying to do like a vertical, or, you know, with the grain, with the pieces that I'm creating. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one of these that has a 90-degree piece that comes down, so you can actually set it on there and then put it in, and I'd be able to kind of roll it along this edge, smoothing it all out and making sure that it is a true 90 degrees. Okay, so I have got this is the right side, and this is roughly what we are creating. Beside it is one that I've kind of maybe done a little bit more of a head start on off camera. I mentioned that I was using the little Temu $50 router. This works great, but with aluminum, obviously, as you know, it obviously wants to stick to everything. It wants to stick to the little carbide, the bits that actually are that are cutting. So it actually took a while in order to achieve this little bevel all the way around. And it works great, but it's not big enough, and I've kind of maxed it out. So that's about the depth that I'm getting at the moment with the router itself. So there's no point in actually showing this because you've seen it in multiple videos that we've done. It is a great little tool, but with aluminum, it is, unless I put a bit more wax on it, maybe that would help. But for what I'm trying to achieve, I need a bigger radius anyway. So you can see the top ones have a really big one, and I just did that with the flap disc on the grinder. I use an old set of veneer calipers, and all I do is mark out an area. So I know that this is 10 mil, so I've just gone 5 mil, and I run a scribe line all the way around, and then I have a line. You can do this way as well. So you have a line both on the top and bottom, and then when you're using this and going back and forth, you have a line to creep up on to keep it really consistent. So you can see that that's a super consistent
line all the way around. I didn't actually even follow the bottom one. I was just trying to test it to see how much rollover I could get on this. So now that we have our bases, you can also see that they once were 90 degrees, and you can see I've taken out a wedge. The wedge is for the taper of the frame, the 32 frame that sits underneath the body itself. This is our gusset. I made two different ones. You can see one is just straight, and then this one kind of has like a little rolled edge, and I just thought it would kind of look nice, but when I put it in there, it didn't look good. So I'm gonna do this one. This is just gonna be rolled right over it, and then this is just gonna blend into this surface. So it'll just sort of add like a little casting rib is what I'm trying to achieve. So it'll sit something like that. I'd like to just take this over so you can kind of see the idea of what I'm trying to create. So it is going to look something like that. Now, I know it may look a bit Boyd Coddington at the moment. I mean that in a nice way. That it is like a big piece of, you know, looks kind of a little bit flash, but I think once we have it all welded and then blended and really softened, because obviously we have some pretty hard edges there, right? You're really not going to grasp the whole image of this until everything is painted. You know, the body is going to go into this really light metallic blue color. And then I think we will do an off-white firewall. The off-white firewall has always been a bit of a contrast setting. It's definitely been done to death, but there's a reason why. It always looks really nice, and it's a very nice contrast to sort of, you know, balance your motor with all your chrome and all your accessories and your colors and that. It adds to a very clean palette, if that makes sense. So once this is painted, obviously the frame's going to be same color as the body. Then we'll have the off-white firewall, and then, you know, this polished with some nice hardware. I really think it's just gonna, you know, attract your eye to an area that usually never really is. If we were to just take this away, you know, it would still look nice, but we just have a pretty hard edge that kind of just sits there, and, you know, it's gonna go paint and then nothing there. And it's totally fine, you could leave it, but I just really think just adding that little accent piece to the corner of that car is really going to draw your eye to a position that you would usually overlook. So I think it'll look really cool. What I would like to do now is I'm just going to show you in these guys here, just while Ben's on the camera. So this is what I usually do. I'm just going to outline this here, and then I'm going to do the exact same. Sorry if you can hear the compressor going. Just got it hooked up in the new shop yesterday, which is a bonus, so we can actually do a bit of work and use the air tools. So this is going to give us just a bit of an area where then we can do a layout. So now that we have that there, I'm just going to run our line, and you can see that's going to give us, it doesn't have to be totally perfect, just something to reference off of. So you can see we have a line there now, so that we can work towards with grinding. And then again, we can do the same with the base. And this way, no matter what you're grinding, whether you're using a hand file or your flat disc or a little air grinder, whatever you're using, you have a reference point to work towards. So we know that we're going to take that 45 degree out. So if I just mark this like that, and then I'll just grab a quick scribe just for an example. That is the material that we're going to take out. So it's basically 45 degrees, even 5 mil this way, 5 mil that way. That's going to create a really nice bevel all the way around, similar to what we have here. So that's really going to roll those edges over, and then what we should do, actually, hindsight, now that I look at it and lay this down, that's sitting right on top of where we're going to be welding. So I probably, Yeah, I don't know what to do here. So I'm thinking off the cuff here, which is great because it's always nice to do that with you guys watching. What I was originally going to do is put these together, clamp them, and then do a big bead all the way around here, and then, you know, file and use our little finger belt sander and sand it all out and smooth it all. And then, you know, try and create sort of that double hump. So if we were looking from the top, it would sort of look like that. That's our base, that's our top. This is the hardware that will go through, if you know what I mean. So we're trying to create this nice little bevel in here. Another option is we could just roll this edge right over, roll this edge right over with not touching this edge here to keep it nice and flat. Then we could drill some holes in this, stick this on it, so it would still create sort of a more sharper edge here, so it would come down like this, really sharp, and then roll out like that. So that would obviously be one piece, again, hardware, but it's going to be a bit sharper there. Then we could flip this over, and then we could just rosette weld or fill that up and obviously connect those two as one. Again, when that hardware is in there, it's going to hold everything together as well. Just not sure what I want to try and do. I know that this one's going to be a lot more work, but it might be a better finish, a better result in the end if I can get that to sort of work. So I think I might just try it. We're just going to give it a big weld and see what happens. I think it'd be kind of fun because we can obviously sculpt it. And then, you know, then yeah, we're just going to go with that one. So I've just thought of it, decided, boom, done. You guys may say, oh, it might take a little bit more work. Probably will. But without hard work, you're not going to get a good result. So let's, yeah, basically let's weld it now. I'm not going to bevel that edge because of where that's going to sit. I need some room to be actual put a weld in there. So I'm just going to clean these up with the sander, wipe everything off with the metho, and I'm going to go and grab the welder. All right, so I got a portion of it already done. I wanted to make sure it was going to work. This piece here is set at the firewall. The firewall actually leans forward a little bit on that entire body. It sort of gives it a really nice little attitude, sort of shrugs its shoulders. So the firewall is not perfectly 90 degrees to the frame rail. Some people don't like the look of it. I think once we have everything set up, it's really going to add a nice little line leading into the grill. This is the base one. I've just done a weld. I've obviously beveled the edge, you know, where we're going to add a weld in there so we can get ample amount of material in there to make sure it's going to be really strong, and then enough to be able to actually remove a fair bit of that to blend it out. I am using a 2.4 tungsten, running 200 amps, but I'm on the foot. It is 10 mil, so it will use quite a few amps to get it nice and warm. Sometimes preheating this stuff definitely works. Whenever your material with aluminum is warmer, it likes to weld a lot better. So once you get some heat pumped into it, you'll definitely get a way nicer weld. I'm running a flexi head. This is sort of my small little TIG setup that I'm doing for sheet metal. So usually I would transfer all this to the big Bertha with not a flex head because they are prone to obviously cracking and breaking with too much heat with running, you know, say 180 plus amps through it with aluminum. So just be wary of that. So I'm kind of telling it, going, yeah, I probably should change everything so that I'm saving obviously everything here. But a 3.2 tungsten does work. Definitely, probably work a little bit better. It would hold a little bit more heat and produce a bit more heat for welding itself. So what I'd like to do actually is just remove a bit of that weld, or at least bevel these edges where these guys are going to sit down. And then I'd like to actually get these into place where they're going to go, and then tack them so that we can start the process of welding the entire thing. All right, so we got our second pieces on there. I'm just going to try and jump around a little bit, hoping the material is a little bit warm. Zap it in the guts and see if we can get some heat into this. And then I'll do this side as well.
So I think I'm just gonna try and go for as big of a weld as I can do on this side, and then I'll reach over, I'll do this side, and then we'll do the base all the way around. It's gonna be a lot of weld to remove, but there's enough material there in order to sculpt something really nice out of it. So let's see how we go. It's actually incredibly crazy how much better it welds once it's warm. Like that base setup, because the top piece wasn't that was cold. It takes a minute obviously for it to warm up, but once it's warm, the weld really flows, and you can kind of really get a nice consistent weld, and you can kind of push it sort of where you want it, which is really cool. Biggest thing with TIG welding is making sure that your filler hand, and your TIG hand, I'll call it, like your torch hand and your filler hand is stable and is comfortable. So you don't have any shakes or you know, uncomfortable sort of passes you have to make. Sometimes when I'm even doing it, I'll kind of do like a dry pass just to see, okay, yep, sweet, my hand can kind of do that. Hey, bit of muscle memory, I know once I kind of get to a point there, I know I'm gonna start to roll the torch over. And then again with the filler, yeah, sweet, okay, I'm good. If you go to do a bit of a dry pass and you find that you're going to be hindered by something, then you can obviously move. Okay, so a couple things there. You can tell it's cold because it was taking me a while to get it warmed up. Also 2.4 tip, probably going to 3.2 tungsten is gonna ramp it up a bit more, put a bit more heat into it. Second thing is where we ground that off, and obviously we're using a bit of the polish on those belt sands so that it doesn't get clogged up full of all the aluminum swath or the little burrs that come off of it. No matter what, when you clean it, like you really need to get like that out. So whether or not you use like a brush that's specific for aluminum only to clean and get that metal as clean as possible so you don't have any porosity. There is a little bit in there, but we will be able to blend it out anyways. I'm going to be knocking a fair amount of this weld off, so but yeah, just a little bit of food for thought there. Okay, so yeah, it's all welded, which is cool. We're just gonna let it sit in that position for a minute, let it cool down, and then we'll pull it out. I'm gonna do a lot of sculpting on this before we go and put this little rib piece in. That's just gonna help me smooth everything out without having to try and get in little tight corners. Once we kind of have it to a shape that we really like, adding that little piece in there will be quite easy. We need to slim it down. We got to give it the old slim fast body break and slim it down like my bod, my dad bod. But what I'd like to do is use our little SB Tools finger belt sander, I'll call it. This thing works awesome. Obviously still going to use a little bit of wax, and then what I'm going to try and do is just sort of sculpt it out, and then we're going to just play around with a bit of different techniques. You guys know I love using that the square sanding discs. That's going to come into play definitely with trying to roll and mold everything here. So we're going to try and sculpt it all, smooth it out. So I'm just thinking I'm trying to This thing works really well for creating a little radius. It's actually the perfect radius for what I'm trying to achieve. So I'm just kind of carving out that weld. We're sort of molding it a little bit. All right, so you obviously saw using the little finger belt sander. This thing is actually insane. Like, I kind of bought it and it sat in the toolbox for a little while. Not like totally giving them a full plug to SP Tools, although they do have a good close relationship with them and they kind of hook us up. But this thing is like really good. There's probably a million different ones that are all probably the same but different brands. But this thing is wicked for just those like finessing little welds or wanting to get stuff down. Like it's actually crazy how much I end up actually using it. As you can see, it's given us like a crazy perfect consistent radius all the way around. Like it's literally just molded it into one piece so quickly. Biggest thing is obviously dipping it in a bit of wax. It obviously helps. You can see it doesn't have too much of the aluminum debris kind of stuck in there. And this is actually total fluke. This isn't sort of a staged thing that just happened on YouTube. I was literally just using the square little cutoff disc that I use all the time. And what I was trying to do is just kind of like smooth out the hips, I'll call it. And just kind of smooth them out a little bit prior to obviously sticking in our little rib that we're gonna stick in there. And coincidentally, a box just showed up. I had no idea where it came from. It came from Oakfield, Wisconsin in the States. Didn't think I ordered anything from there. And just got a very lovely letter from Rick and Sally at Hexon Abrasives. They're a small startup company, and basically he has watched the video. He has seen me done, cutting them, and people have actually said, the hexagon shape does work really well. So he just sent a whole box of a 80 grit hexagon little shapes that then you can trim down. There's 3-inch ones, and he also gave us a little bag of 2-inch ones as well. He then has these really neat backings that you obviously can use on there as well. They are firmer, so they're not soft, so they obviously you'd be able to utilize them in different applications. He sent us a couple of 40 grit ones as well, but literally timing couldn't have been any better, and I'm actually really excited to just rip into one, try it, and tell you whether or not it works really well. So we're gonna just put one on right away. I already have sort of a small pad. He did give me another driver that's actually even smaller, which is really cool. But that driver, I believe, if I just pull one of these guys out of this little trimming plate on Amazon. So he obviously has his little brand name in these little Hexon plates here. And then he must have the driver sit on like that. And then that would sit similar to that. So really cool little setup. I'm actually really excited to see whether or not they're gonna work. And if they do, I'll probably be jumping right on his little website there and be ordering a bit. And we will put the link in the description below. So make sure you do jump over to Rick and Sally, and if you guys do need any really neat abrasives, I actually really like them. They're quite thick. They almost have like a material backing. So yeah, let's just try it right now, live, see what happens. Just gonna throw my safeties on, put a bit of wax on it. I just like doing that. It just sort of helps. Doesn't look like it does much, but it just helps lubricate it a little bit. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's crazy. Like, not just saying that, that actually works really, really well. I took a fair bit of material out, but obviously in a very smooth manner, exactly what I was trying to achieve. So maybe the old hexagon is better than the square. Who knows? I'm a bit, now I'm confused. I don't want to have to cut a bunch of stop sign shapes, but I can just get them like that and... So you can see what I was trying to do. I'm just trying to smooth it out a little bit prior to getting into this area, but damn, those work really well. Massive thank you, Rick and Sally at Hexon Abrasives. Thank you very much for that. It is much appreciated. You've kind of taught me something again. That's what I love about this channel. You know, as much as we try and give you guys as much info and as much, you know, kind of what I've learned over the past 20 years of doing this, I also learn daily from this channel, which is like insane. You know, it's such a cool benefit that you can both kind of learn together. So again, massive shout out to everybody that supports this channel, and you know, it's really cool. It's, yeah, very humbling. I sometimes get a little like tingly feeling about how amazing it's been, but less the tingles, less the feelings. Let's get back into shaping some steel. Alright, so we've used a bit of brown rouge on our wheel and got it relatively good. It still has a couple imperfections I would like to kind of go back and kind of clean up, but again, I also like the organic feel of it being kind of homemade piece. But yeah, obviously just blend it in, same thing as we did on the outside there, and then, you know, just kind of used what we could to sort of get it in there. Just had a bit of sandpaper, rubbed it in, but it's not perfect, but I really like the way it looks. Biggest thing is, now that we've done that, I'm just going to use our little rake here, clean this wheel up and add some purple compound from Renegade Polishing, and that should give us a really nice finish. I'm just going to put my mask on too, because I don't like breathing this stuff in, so you can watch along as we go. Get our gloves on here. We're soaking wet from sweating. And then I'll grab our purple compound. This you definitely don't need a lot of. Almost looks like nickel. So I'm just going to get our finishing wheel on here, and then we're basically done on the polishing side of it.
All right, well, bit of elbow grease later, we kind of have the finished product. Not quite finished, but enough to be able to show you guys what I was trying to create. Now, I just welded in that the rib, or the, I'll call it the rib, this nice little gusset piece in there, the exact same way I welded everything else in. Luckily, it was still really warm, so when I went to weld it, it actually welded perfect. It was like, I just had a really nice consistency the whole way around. It was a really nice sort of flat weld, so there wasn't a lot of material to have to remove. And we were able to blend it out like I wanted to, rather than kind of having some pretty hard edges. So it really looks sort of very natural and kind of elegant, I'd say. I think I use that word a fair bit, but I want to bring that, across into these builds they're very robust and, fast and big and loud cars, but there's so many parts to these cars that it's the way that Henry Ford and the team designed them. Like they're beautiful. They're an elegant piece of art, basically on wheels. So when you are emulating parts to put onto it, rather than just kind of cutting something out of a piece of flat steel and kind of not radiusing your edges or finishing your sides of your material, and you kind of just bolt it on, like, you kind of got to take into respect to what they were doing, especially with like the Packards and the Buicks that are like, they were the luxury car. They were kind of that really nice, the design that went into them was a lot, is what I'm trying to say. So, overthink things, create stuff that sort of complements it. But all I did was I ran it through that red Scotch-Brite on the polishing wheel that you guys have seen me use a lot. I used a bit of sandpaper, just with my finger, just in certain areas, but I definitely haven't totally finished this yet. Like, I haven't even taken it down to, I think it was like 320 grit, and I just went and polished it. So again, with the polish, I just used some brown rouge, and then I used that purple stuff that I just mentioned. You saw me do it before, but really happy with how it's turned out. I did, however, drill a couple of holes in there and just kind of lightly countersunk them. I'm not exactly sure what hardware I'm going to use. I was thinking about a countersunk bolt, but I think I'm going to run sort of a dome head slotted bolt style. I think they look really nice, or I don't know. If you guys have any suggestions, please drop a comment down below or fire us an email with a photo of what you think would look really nice for some hardware here. But, from creating obviously just a little cardboard template, utilizing that flat bar that we had, obviously cutting out millions of pieces, and then this is sort of the object that we were creating. So if you put the two together, but this is the type of stuff that you guys can do. Like, what did I use? I used an angle grinder, a little bandsaw. I mean, obviously the linisher is ideal if you have one, but if not, you can still use your flat disc on your grinder at home. Those hexagon things were a bonus. They definitely helped me shape it. But again, if you need to, just go and cut yours into that square to help you blend them out. But this is the type of stuff that you can achieve. I mean, I'm super stoked how this turned out. It's actually very similar, the more I look at it, to like a flathead 1932 mount. So they kind of have these like little dog bones that sort of come off the front of the flathead, and they mount on the front of the cross member, very similar to the Roadster that I'm building. And it looks so cool. Like I'd almost want to create a set that would be able to hold that. But I was just saying to Ben again, it would be really neat to do this again, but create the object maybe in a 3D printer and then cast it and then see how nice that comes out. And maybe, we could make a couple more. But as far as like a really neat mount, I think it's going to be really cool. And, I think we all want to see what it's going to look like on the car. So let's walk over, put this into place, and see what it's going to look like. Moment of truth. I actually haven't set it on here to see if it's going to look good. So let's just pretend that's in there. I'm just going to set it off the firewall a little bit just so you get a bit of a shadow behind it, but dang, that looks really, really cool. All right, well there you have it. You know, using simple tools, we've created like a pretty complex piece that has lots of curves, lots of shape, lots of angles, and it looks amazing. I really, really like it. And I said it before, like, you're not really gonna get the full, you know, punch of this in this video until the future when this is painted, the firewall's painted, the frame's painted, everything's done and nice, and that's just gonna be one of those little pieces that, you know, is really gonna draw your eye to an area that usually wouldn't. So I'm really happy with the way this has turned out. I gotta create the other side now, which is sweet, but I just wanted to show you what you can create and, you know, kind of thinking a little bit outside the box. You guys know I love doing that. So I think once we create an exhaust, however we're gonna do that, you know, maybe it'll just be one of those things that's kind of a second glance part, but it's just one of those details that doesn't go unseen. So, you know, it's just a little piece. Looks like it's something that was bought from a speed parts place maybe back in the day when you were, you know, putting your Model A bodies on 32 frames. But I'm really stoked with the way it's turned out. And yeah, I'm glad you guys kind of watched along and watched me create this. Wasn't really sure how it was going to turn out. I didn't want it to be some big bulky CNC looking thing that was on there that would, you know, more of like a street rod piece than this nice traditional hot rod. So I think that piece does look really good with the way that we are creating this car. So it's going to be a lot more to come on this, and yeah, stay tuned. Hopefully you guys like, subscribe, hit notifications, let me know in the comments what you guys think, and yeah, we'll see you next week on Bennetts Customs. Thanks guys.